Mr. Newitt è Group Quality and Technical Manager di Brickworks, un colosso australiano del mondo del heavy clay che ha fatto il suo ingresso negli Stati Uniti nel 2018 acquisendo diverse aziende produttrici di laterizi oltre a crescere organicamente con investimenti propri.
Good afternoon, a pleasure to be here. When Brickworks decided to invest in the United States in late 2017 and made acquisitions in 2018, it was decided to invest in more companies that were involved in commercial and architectural sales in the US as opposed to our domestic market in Australia, which is very, very heavily based on domestic housing construction. This was a very conscious decision that we decided to make. Brickworks' motto is that we make beautiful products that last forever. And we see ourselves as modern custodians of the oldest man-made building material, being a brick. So it's something that we sort of looked very carefully at the US when we invested there in that area, because there are the buildings that are built in the US by architects and designed by architects, etc., will have lifespans of 100 plus or even longer compared to that of domestic housing. So we are primarily in that market. We see about a 2-year strong pipeline still in existence. Some of this was work that was put on hold during the pandemic, and some of it also that was pushed back by large municipalities, etc., and states where their finances were heavily drawn upon in dealing with the pandemic through particularly in 2020. The domestic housing market in the US is sitting at about 1.7 million starts at the moment, which is about 12 times what we would have in Australia as a good thing. But then again, the population is in excess of 10 times of our own. So we don't see that being heavily affected going forward in the next couple of years. It depends on how much interest rates in the US go up, because obviously that affects people's ability to borrow and build. So we see it quite, strong future demand for the next couple of years. The biggest problem that we have both in Australia and in the US is the lack of trades, is the lack of bricklayers, masons and skilled tradespeople, because like a lot of first world countries, none of the younger generation want to get involved in laying bricks or building houses or being carpenters or any of those sorts of occupations. Everybody wants to do something in the world of tech, and that's becoming a huge problem. So where we are highly automated in our brick plants, we are now looking at very, very seriously and involved with universities, etc., in how we automate the installation process of our products, because that is a huge impediment to both commercially and domestically. But on the whole, we see it as being very positive.
Leggevo che uno dei vostri obiettivi come Brickworks a livello industriale, chiaramente, quindi di investimenti, rimane il net zero carbon, la decarbonizzazione. Che è una delle attività che vi sta coinvolgendo maggiormente. È chiaro che il settore del laterizio è tra i più energivori che abbiamo, e sebbene negli Stati Uniti non viviate certo gli shock energetici che viviamo noi in Europa, ciò nonostante il tema della sostenibilità, della riduzione dei consumi e dell'obiettivo net zero carbon rimane uno dei vostri obiettivi. Ce ne parla?
Yes, gladly. Zero carbon, now there's a real goal, isn't it? That's a serious goal for anybody. So what we're looking at is how we reduce our carbon footprint. I mean, obviously in the US, where we are involved in structures that have very, very long lives, then the carbon footprint that they bring with them is amortized over a longer period of time. So one of the problems that we have with the embodied carbon, there's all these different terms being used around the world, is everybody has a different way of measuring this. In different countries, even in Australia, different states have different approaches to how they measure these things. So it's a real moving feast as to how you work with it. And then Brickworks being a public company, you then come under the scrutiny of the large investment groups and the analysts who support those investment groups in the stock market, and they all have different interpretations on what this is. So it's, I guess the simple thing for us is two areas. One, to reduce the mass of the bricks we manufacture as much as is practical while maintaining their technical qualities. Therefore, naturally you use less energy in processing the product. The other side is to use as many alternate options for fuel. Our primary fuel, of course, like most ceramics manufacturers, is natural gas, but we are involved in projects in Australia, and we will take these things to the US because people think that, Australia doesn't have high energy costs. We're the second largest exporter of liquefied natural gas in the world after Qatar. There's times when we export more than Qatar. Our own government hasn't corralled off any of that for us, so we pay world parity pricing. So we're not copying it as bad as you are yet, but we're well up there. So one of our strategies is that we are also a gas wholesaler and an energy wholesaler in our own country, so we have far more control over our costs. But that said, you can't escape the inevitable. So we are involved in projects of green hydrogen being supplemented into the natural gas streams in the country. We're involved in biodigesters for municipal waste. We are now installing vast areas of solar. I mean, Australia's probably got the largest rapidly growing solar generation in the world. So all these areas we're involved in. And the other thing is, of course, that in every step of our process, we've got to have an ability to recycle any waste that we produce, being water or any of our byproducts, go back into our thing. We also manufacture a lot of masonry products, so we now cross-fertilise between our masonry businesses and our brick businesses. So it's got to be attacked on many fronts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newitt.